Hello my friends and welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. If you're new to my channel, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my channel. I am a self-taught alcohol ink and watercolor artist, and on this very beginner-friendly channel I share with you the techniques that I have discovered and ways to complete a beautiful painting that you can be proud of. So on this piece of KRYLON photo paper, I am working with alcohol ink, and I was just playing around, wasn't sure what to do. I knew I wanted to play with the inks, but sometimes you get a little tired of doing the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to try something different. I started by putting down some ink on the paper and just moving it around a little bit with a cotton swab. And as I started to add more ink to the paper, my colors began to merge with one another, and you can see that the red is starting to take over in certain areas. So I did use a cotton swab to try and pick up some of the excess ink. And then I used a little piece of a paper towel to try and pick up some of the ink that was puddling. And I liked the pattern that the paper towel was creating, so I thought to try a paper towel over the entire painting. And I liked the texture, but it lifted too much of the ink. So then I sprayed it with a little bit of alcohol using my mini mister, and then I dropped in a little bit more ink. And I attempted to move the ink around with a paper towel again and added some more in the areas where I thought I needed it. I used my dryer. And if you're a regular, you know that I like that pebbly look on my photo paper for a background. So I sprayed it with a little bit more alcohol, and you can see that pebbly pattern beginning to emerge. As the alcohol dries, you get this pebbly effect where the ink just pulls together in circles. So here I sprayed it a little bit more with alcohol. And I'm using a fine mister. It's called a mini mister, and they're made by Ranger. So it's not splattering a bunch of alcohol all over my paper. Now I'm taking a POSCA pen with a very thick nib, and I am outlining the patterns that I see the ink created. So I'm going to go around the entire sheet of paper and outline all the patterns that I see. And at this point, I wasn't even sure where I was going with this. And sometimes this is how I come up with some really creative ideas, and some of my prettiest paintings. Sometimes it's a win and sometimes it's a loss, but I thought this one turned out really pretty, so I had to share it with you. So now I'm going over my lines again just to thicken them up a little bit, because now I do have a plan in mind, and this is again often what happens. I start without an idea, and as I start moving along the painting, the ideas come to me. And this is a fun painting to do, again, when you don't know what to paint, but you want to paint. And maybe you're tired of doing the same thing. I know I get tired of repeating the same flowers or the same centers, so it's fun to do something different. So now I've thickened up all my lines, and I'm using a POSCA pen with a finer nib. And I'm drawing these curved lines, and the lines begin from the same point and then span out across the area. And at first I thought I'm only going to do them in some of the shapes, but as you can see, it's kind of addictive. You kind of get lost in the patterns. It's such a relaxing painting to do. So turn on your favorite music, pour yourself a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and just relax, get lost in the painting. And before you know it, something beautiful will emerge. So again, there's no rhyme or reason. I start my lines at whichever point, and they all come from one point, and they span out, and they create these pretty curves, and it gives the painting such interest. It keeps the eye moving. And there are some areas where the ink is kind of thick and sticky, and it will eventually dry. But I just skipped over those areas with the Micron pen because if you're not careful, you can clog up the pen. And again, you can see that the outlines are very thick, but the lines within the shapes are very fine. I prefer to use a finer tip Micron pen for the details in my paintings when I doodle like this. So you can see in the corner on the bottom right, the ink is still kind of thick, so I just skipped over those areas. And what I did try to do was to keep the lines moving in different directions than the shape next to it. I thought that was more interesting, so I tried to be mindful of that. And in some areas, it was a success, and in other areas, I missed it. But it's not something that your eye catches. Again, this painting, because of the colors and because of all the different shapes and lines, your eye keeps moving through it. So if that happens to you, don't even worry about it. If I hadn't mentioned it, you probably wouldn't have even noticed. I think a painting like this would look really pretty in a black frame. Or even a black mat with a black frame. That would be really pretty. That would really make the colors pop. So here I'm using a Micron pen to hold the paper down because I find that I often smudge the Micron pen by putting my finger into it or laying my hand into it. So be mindful of that because it does not dry as quickly as I'm going. So I always end up smudging it. So using the Micron pen kind of helps me from doing that. Sometimes I'll lay another piece of paper down and rest my hand on that, but I find that I often forget to move the paper as I move my hand, so I always smudge. But I will say that using the Micron pen to hold the paper in place really saved me from smudging on this particular painting. I didn't smudge any areas at all, so I'm really proud of myself for that because I am notorious for it. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you give this a try. If you do, please be sure to share it with me on my Facebook page of Evil Vintage Designs. You can always drop your painting in the comment section. I love to see how you do. And just to complete the painting, I'm using a POSCA pen to create a thin border around the painting. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.